Good morning. My name is Peter Scialla. I am the COO of Delos. Delos is a company that operates at the intersection of real estate and the health and wellness industry. Now, health and wellness is arguably one of the most important industries globally, and factually, it's the fastest growing. Our mission is to improve health and well-being of occupants through the built environment by focusing on the effect that buildings and structures have on us as occupants. About 5 years ago, we made an observation about the notion of sustainability in real estate. And there was a lot of progress, a lot of thought, a lot of work being done towards environmental health, the whole green building movements, the focus on building structures that are good for the environment. And what we found was a vacuum of thought as it related to occupant health and the effect that buildings were having on the health and well-being of people that were inside. We decided to embark on a journey to establish the well building standard, which is a protocol that focuses on what we felt was a vacuum of thought, occupant health in the built environment. You can imagine that this is a pretty tall order. The prospect of combining the best of science and medicine with the best of architecture and design and engineering, we realized early on was going to involve inviting experts in every discipline to help forward the movement. I've heard a lot of good things and positive messages that have come out of Transform over the last couple of days. One of the recurring messages is the need to open up to collaboration and have an open ecosystem to forward any progress. And thankfully, we followed that mantra early on and engaged folks in the fields of medicine, science, architecture, sustainability, et cetera, to come up with what we believe is a standard that will become a big global movement in the field of real estate. We spend more than 90% of our times indoors, and we need to start thinking about what buildings and structures are doing to us as occupants of these buildings. You can imagine we also needed to commission some help from leading minds in sustainability. There had been a lot of progress in a movement, in the green building movement, as it related to LEED certification, which is an acronym that points towards environmental health and in built design. And we wanted to make sure that this was something that didn't touch only a few buildings. We certainly did not want to own it ourselves and develop real estate and have a handful of buildings try to achieve occupant health. We wanted this to be an industry movement, and for that, we took some great minds from past movements in real estate and in sustainability, and collectively produced the well building standard. So, just want to go through the standard briefly. When you think about the categories that make up the well building standard, and you can see them here: air, water, nourishment, light, fitness, comfort, and mind. There's a lot of intuition. I mean, obviously, if you think about air quality and water quality, it's quite obvious that we have solutions for purifying air, and I think there would be very little debate surrounding the fact that purer air is better for the human body and that we can implement this in large scale to many pieces of real estate globally. And the same goes for water. And if you think of categories like nourishment and fitness, et cetera, there are things you can do through active design to promote nutrition, to promote well-being and a healthy lifestyle. The one category that really surprised us early on and made us quite certain that this deserved its own movement and its own focus, and that this went well beyond environmental health and into the realm of biological health and biological sustainability, was light. Quite simply, the effects that light have on our body are vast, and this is a new field of medicine. I think about 12 years ago, doctors discovered a receptor in your eye that told us that our eyes are not just instruments for seeing. They're also instruments for telling our bodies what time of day it is, quite simply by the position of the sun in the sky, and then by various methods with artificial light, the kind of light and at which angle the light is entering our bodies. We got very excited to learn that light has a lot to do with our sleeping patterns, our energy levels, hormone productions, et cetera. And when we realized the body of work that was behind this, decided to dive way into that category and really round out the well-building standard to touch things beyond the sort of intuitive categories like cleaner air and cleaner water, but into the categories that you see on the page. So the result of all of this was a standard that we felt the need to produce outcomes and strive to produce outcomes. It would be one thing to write a protocol for built spaces that followed a sort of checklist of design. I think we took it one step further and approached buildings as if they were a patient, and that at the end of a construction process, we would want a checkup, literally a stethoscope, to go onto the building to show that not only were proper protocols and outcomes followed, but that these were producing measurable outcomes. So parts per billion in pollutants for air quality and water quality, ambient sound levels as it relates to noise pollution, lux levels as it relates to lighting. There are different things that you should be doing in different bedrooms and different office environments with indoor lighting that will adjust your body's clock and realign it. Essentially, when it comes down to light, you know, we, by introducing artificial light into our lives about a century ago, we've been walking around as humans as if it's constant twilight. Okay, we get too much light late at night, artificially, indoors when the sun is down, and we get too little light during the day, especially daylight. And your body is used to having a lot of energy when the sun is at high noon and is positioned, you know, high in the sky, and to start preparing itself for sleep when the sun is setting, and then to get very high quality rest overnight when it's completely dark. There are things that we can do indoor to lighting to reset our body's clock, which have been thrown out of whack and continue to be out of whack. The tone, intensity, color, temperature, angle, all of these things are inputs to the human body. And for different environments, different rooms, different settings, there are things we should do with indoor lighting to more properly align our body's clock and get more in touch with the position of the sun in the sky. So where does the well-building standard now stand? We have opened up a pilot about a year ago, and we have several dozen buildings and property owners and projects across many different typologies striving to achieve well certification according to the well-building standard. You can see that this has applications in residential, obviously, where we're spending most of our time, in hospitality, office settings, schools, libraries, public facilities. It was very important for us to craft a standard in a way that it was accessible to any developer, any building owner, any tenant to try to achieve. Wellness is not a luxury. Ultimately, I think most people would say that wellness is a right. And access to these wellness principles was something that was very important as we worked with technology companies and products and solutions to engineer some cost-effective ways to actually achieve well certification. The first project to achieve well certification was last November. CBRE, which is a real estate company, had headquarters in Los Angeles, 50,000 square feet, about 250 employees. And for a minor incremental cost to construction, they achieved the principles necessary to have a stamp of well certified on their office space. And they now have 250 employees that are enjoying the principles of wellness. Obviously, there are some arguments that you can make towards productivity and the ROIs from a dollar angle for an investment like this, but the softer and moral benefit and human benefit go well beyond that. In fact, shortly after the office was well certified, we received a phone call from leadership at the company, and they said, "This is wonderful. We have followed your protocol. We have achieved the outcomes that you prescribed for an optimal environment for employees. Our employees, we believe, feel healthier. We believe our absenteeism is going to go down and our productivity is going up." But one of the things we didn't realize was just how infectious and contagious wellness is. The leader of the office space went on to say, I find myself riding up and down the elevator and listening to people's conversations about how they've changed their children's diets and their health habits at home because they're working in a well-certified office. So you can get the sense that this is something that people want to be part of, and this is something that we've tried to make accessible to every typology, every price point, and every demographic. Similarly, along the way, what we realized is that this needed to be something that is more of a movement and sponsored by an organization that was public-facing and not necessarily just private-side IQ. We created the International Well Building Institute, the IWBI, as a public benefit corporation to have a very strong altruistic and philanthropic mission, because we think with the philanthropy, with the altruism, with the good that can come out of all of this, we can really inspire a movement that not only is limited to a small set of buildings or structures that can afford to do wellness, but that will attach itself to an altruistic mission in the process. And I'll give you an example. We have from day one, as a public benefit corporation, stated that 51% of the profits associated with well certification. So when folks strive to achieve well certification, 51% of those profits are being earmarked and donated from day one for good cause to 501c3s, to charities, to promote this idea of health and wellness. And in its natural and rawest form, if you think about wellness, we can do all these wonderful things indoors with lighting and acoustics and air quality and water quality, but let's start with, obviously, a roof over your head for folks that don't have it. And so I'll give you some examples later on, but there's a circular element to this whereby a building that's going for well certification is doing some good for the people inside. And equally, the majority of the revenue created, the profits created from that are being donated to low-income housing, homeless shelters, and places where we can help promote the good that is happening. So one of the things that I did mention before about the process and the audit is we wanted to make sure that the buildings that actually received well certification were performing, and that this was not just a follow a list. And so there is an audit. There's different levels of certification depending on, obviously, some budget considerations, but also the nature of the building and for each typology. In the process of developing this standard and thinking about how to introduce wellness indoors into the built environment for people's health and well-being, you can imagine there was a lot of focus on testing, validation. I mean, it's one thing to write a prescription for an optimal environment. It's another one to actually have solutions and technologies that can achieve that in a cost-effective way. And so we went through a lot of rigorous testing of solutions to see what was possible. And we remain dedicated at Delos to finding solutions and technologies to achieve well certification. We're very proud and excited to just this morning announce a collaboration with the Center for Innovation at Mayo Clinic to build and operate the Well Living Lab right here in Rochester, adjacent to Mayo's campus. This is going to be a first-of-its-kind laboratory that uses the well building standard and the principles of wellness real estate as a foundation to test in simulated scenarios to mimic real-life situations the effect of bringing health and wellness indoors and how that affects people's health over time in settings like residential bedroom, office environment, hotel rooms, et cetera. So we're very excited to be joining forces with Mayo as a thought leader and pioneer, and equally excited to see what kind of good can come out of a lab like this. This would also be an invitation, obviously, to corporations that have what they believe to be wellness technologies and solutions to send those solutions into the lab for validation, for testing, for improvement, et cetera. So I'd like to circle back and conclude with the message here that this is what we believe to be an industry movement, and we're trying to rally the industry to support it in many different ways. The well building standard started with some private side IQ, and we've broadened it out to an industry-wide peer review, another important factor here is we believe that if this was going to be an industry document shared publicly, on October 20th this year at our first annual WELL conference, we will be presenting the WELL Building Standard as a public document, the first form to come out of pilot after an extensive peer review by industry practitioners, medical doctors, and scientists. And in order to sort of spark that momentum, the altruistic message here is really catching hold in a circular way. I'll give you some examples. We are in motion WELL certifying some structures in the city of Los Angeles, and some of the funds and profits that will be generated from WELL certifying commercial office space, mixed use, retail, et cetera, are being given directly back to Estrada Courts Affordable Housing in Los Angeles, which is you know, a good example of how good in one community or zip code can be circulated to support that, and I think that's helping to build a lot of momentum. So thank you for the time this morning, and we look forward to continuing to share the prospects and advantages of wellness real estate with everybody.
Peter.
Yes, sir.
Thanks so much. One question from yorn.com/transform. How does the WELL Building Standard apply to existing buildings and infrastructure? Can it only be for new construction? I suspect there might be a few buildings out there that could be 6 certified, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. That's a great question. So we are continuing to develop the standard for various typologies. To give you an example, we did WELL certify an existing space. The CBRE example that I gave before was existing office space. It was not new construction. So we have versions of the standard that are appropriate for tenant improvements, renovations, et cetera. The good news here is we're looking to achieve outcomes. So if we can find solutions even in built space, existing space, for air quality, water quality, ambient sound levels, light levels, et cetera, then that would qualify for certification. And that's the beauty of designing this around something that is, of course, evidence-based and factual and based on the science, but producing outcomes.
Great concept. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.